Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. And for those of you who have routinely visited and liked and subscribed to our channel and liked our videos, thank you very much. I know you hear this from everybody, but it really does make a difference. So if you haven't already liked or subscribed, please do. Greatly appreciate it. Well, being that we're now into August, Obon season is coming to an end. And while I do have more stories of other people I know that are passed on, I'm going to end it tonight with just one last story. And I mean, I thought about talking about my disaster meeting with Anne Rice, but I had to think hard on that one and decided, you know what, we'll say that for another time. I really don't want to go there right now. So, person we would like to talk about will be Robin Williams. And you're probably asking now, what do I know about Robin Williams? Well, see, the thing is, right as I was on the verge of becoming homeless, we lost our house and we were being evicted, and it seemed like everything was going wrong in my life. I got a call from Central to come out and work on a film called Father's Day, and I didn't know anything about it at the time, but heard it was with a very big director. That turned out to be Ivan Reitman. And needless to say, I showed up to set. I was in no mental condition to work that day. I was just, the previous 36 hours were absolute murder, and a lot of crying, a lot of fighting, a lot of strife, and it was just a bad scene. And it pretty much I knew at that weekend that my first marriage was over, pretty much. And well, needless to say, by myself, I didn't know anything about this film. I didn't know who was in it, nothing. And as I, did my usual check-in, because they have for, people that, have your under fives, and you have your union background, and then you had your non-union background as everyone's lining up to, do their whole check-in. And it was a big call. See, there were two big films happening. This was August, September, so yeah, right at the very end of August, 1997. And at that moment, there was two big films that were taking place. One was Starship Troopers, which my friend Demi was working on and telling me horror stories about, being in that shit show. And then there was the big punk rock and goth call for Father's Day. Now, I didn't know anything about it. And so as I'm checking out, I'm noticing somebody very familiar to me. It's Robin Williams. And he emerges out of nowhere. Everyone's like, what? Hey, that's Robin Williams. And he's going down the line. He's shaking hands and introducing himself to every single person. I mean, this was about 400 people, mind you. He's going down there and he's introducing himself. Eventually he gets to me, and I'm like, wow. It's like, this is fucking cool. And I later found out that, Billy Crystal is co-star on this film. Okay, again, I still didn't know what this film was about or what, but for some reason they're gonna do a big punk club scene or goth scene, whatever. And at the time I still had big blonde hair, and I was, well, you'll just have to see what was originally, this golden opportunity. I mean, again, when we got to set, I was just very depressed, and I was not having a good time. I was just inconsolable about losing the house, and just, whole life going to hell. And suddenly the director comes up to me, Ivan Reitman. Well, first they send their production assistant, assistant director, and then Ivan liked my look. And he said, okay, we want to give you a scene. I go, you're going to give me a scene? Yeah. And you got some paperwork to fill out. So, but we're going to tell you what we're going to do. We're going to have you work with Robin Williams directly and Billy Crystal. And then, then they decided, okay, hold that spot for a while. So we're waiting and waiting. And the whole time, Robin comes up and says, hey, it's great to talk to you again. He's just the nicest guy, and we started, talking about, how much we enjoyed his comedy, and then he started going into some impressions. I go, oh, no. I says, you realize this means war, right? And he starts going, he says, oh, yeah. And we start getting into this impression war, and it went on for about 10 minutes straight. We started off with George H. Bush's, and then we went to H. Ross Perot's, and it was just hilarious because it's like for every joke he had, I had a counter because, I knew this man's comedy, and, it was just these people, the comedy these people had generated pretty much wrote itself. So it was pretty funny. And afterwards, Robin said, yeah, you're pretty good. So normally people don't last a minute with me. You lasted 10. I said, well, I don't plan on going into stand-up comedy. I'm not always the happy type. But I really appreciate the compliment. And then they inform us, okay, Ivan lets us know that I'm going to be doing a scene with Billy Crystal. And as they explain the setup, it's like Billy and Robin, they're walking through this punk club looking for some kid that they think is their son. At least that's the plot. This movie was basically a redo of a French film, which may have made sense in France. It really didn't make much sense here. It seemed kind of stupid, preposterous plot, but nonetheless, they greenlit this film and they're making it. And so we're at the Mayan Theater, and Billy Crystal just found out he's going to do the scene with me, and Robin is just standing there, and my good friends of mine are all standing around, and Billy Crystal comes in to me and says, hi, my name is Billy Crystal, and he's assuming we've never heard of this man. And I knew, I was a big fan of his comedy, and I let him do his spiel. Just let him just talk and talk and talk. We're going to do this scene. He's trying to impress me, and that's when there was that moment of silence when he was done, and that's when I gave him that look, and then I threw his own Fernando voice back at him, which I didn't know was a no-no for him. He didn't like that, but Robin thought it was pretty hilarious. I said, Billy. And he goes, oh no, here it comes. He's bracing for it. I said, Billy, I want you to know that I watched soap religiously as a child throughout the entire 1970s, and now look at me. He goes, oh God, I'm responsible for this. This isn't right. And Robin's just losing his shit, and just thought it was pretty hilarious. Well, needless to say, I kind of, the scene was that he bumps into me and gives me a weird look over, and he's never seen anyone look like me. I had these horns sticking out of my head, I'm in all fishnets and a red kilt, and I got breasts because I was trans, and this big hair, and all these bondage belts and stuff, and he's just never seen anybody like me up close, I guess. And so he's like, wow, a little thrown. So anyway, his character is equally just as thrown, and the sketch is that he walks up to me and he says, wow, what's your name? And they told me ad lib. I said, okay, my name's Tom. He's thought of the first guy I didn't like. So I said, okay, my name's Tom, whatever. And he says, okay, and he pulls out a business card. He says, okay, all right, Tom. He says, I'm an attorney. I says, here's my card. Call me Monday morning, and together you and I will sue the man who did this to you. And I'm like, fuck you. That was my scene. And they chose to cut it and left me with just a walk-on. But I still collect residuals all these years later. And that was pretty sweet. Well, the fun didn't end there. We shot as long as we could at the Mayan Theater, and then once we wrapped up there, we moved over to the Warner lot, and we shot for numerous days there. And the only way to keep me on there and keep me working, because I got 3 days on contract, and you talk about a pay increase. I went from making $150 a day to $3,000 a day, and I was like, whoa, this is absurd change. And so, after I'd signed that contract, so after some paperwork and signed that contract, they wrapped me. It's like, film's gonna be going on for another 30 days. My wife was furious. It's like, how dare you try to be a star? You needed to work as many days as you could. I said, for what? I worked 3 days. I made more money in 3 days than I normally would make working 30 days. Who cares? But I thought about it, and I said, you know what? Let me talk to the AD. And I talked to the AD. I says, look, I'll just throw on a wig and become a different person. And it's okay, but you're not on contract. You'll just be regular union wages. I said, that's fine. Keep me away from the X and keep me away from that depressing scene, and hang out with my friends and get paid to do it. And so we did. So we set up this. It's supposed to be the back lot of the concert, and the Muffs are playing, but we don't see the Muffs yet. And Mel Gibson did a little cameo pretending to be a piercer, and he had all these fake piercings on his face, but we didn't talk to him. He didn't want to talk to us either. Fair enough. We didn't know he was a racist then, but we do now. So there I am. I'm in white go-go boots. I got this red hair now, and from blonde, and and I'm all 1960s go-go'd out. And Robin, up until now, every morning Robin would come up and says, "Hey, how you doing? How's your daughters? How's Ilsa and Erica?" He's always asking. And he even signed an autograph, as the genie, for my kid, because they love the movie Aladdin. And so he sees me the first time like this, and walks past me, kind of looks like, I don't know this person. He's just kind of walking by, and I go, "Hey, Robin," and then recognize my voice. He does a double take, and he goes, "Those boots are made for walking." He cracked up. He says, "Oh fuck, I didn't recognize you." And we had a few fun talks there, and it was just fucking cool, because we did, I don't know how many days we did, and most of the time we just sat around, we're bored stiff, because this is all supposed to be the backstage shenanigans. And so during this period we got to talk a lot about a wide variety of things. We moved away from comedy, and we talked about depression, and we talked about our heavy drug use, and I was quite surprised by the things he did reveal. I wasn't going to ask him about the whole John Belushi thing. Kind of pressed him on the Mork and Mindy thing, with the Love Boat shooting next door, and the cruise director going into his trailer and getting high. Eventually, I got to actually use that trailer, and it was pretty fun. But Robin, always a sense of humor, and when no one's looking, you got to see a serious side. And he'd tell me about what a profound impact doing LSD at age 14 in San Francisco was. Now, I don't know if he was just jiving me, but he sounded pretty sincere at the time, and I'll take him for his word. Because I did a lot of acid at 14, and that's kind of life-changing, and the impact continues for years and years. So eventually we wound up wrapping there, and now we have one more location, and I managed to again score another couple more days, and we shoot at the Scarlight Bowl. And again, right before we wrapped, I want to take a picture with him, and Billy's getting annoyed because World Series happened. All Billy cared about was a goddamn baseball game. He didn't want to talk to us. He was just he was uncomfortable around us. And I thought it was kind of strange because, he'd been around all kinds of people. I thought he was a little tougher than that, but okay, no worries. I know we can be a little too much, but we were young and we were kind of excited because we grew up with these guys, and I was just a little disappointed that Billy was a little too conservative and just really didn't want to interact with us so much, and that was kind of disappointing. But Robin was more than happy to, and every morning he'd greet us, and I don't know how that man did it. 400 extras. This man can memorize your names. I can't remember one person's name. I have to hear it like 3 times from the same person, before maybe it begins to click in my memory. But that man can remember like 400 names, and the next day, not even blink an eye, this guy could do it. He was really just a warm, generous person. I mean, we all know the guy was funny, and we know he liked to do drugs, and he suffered from depression, just like all of us, and all of us creative types, that is. But we didn't know it was as bad, or would get bad. And after working with him for over 30 days, I kind of started to feel like he was like a friend, and he would greet me every morning. He was happy to see me, and everybody else, of course. And the final night of shooting at the Starlight Bowl in Burbank, we had a break between scenes before Muffs would play. Rest in peace, Kim. She's gone too. And Robin, Ivan Reitman decided he was going to elevate another person, and they picked this bald-headed girl with a lot of piercings and tats, and they say, okay, you're going to get a speaking line, and we're all like, welcome to the Screen Actors Guild, because that's what I took my money. I mean, I did ask my wife, I said, well, I know we need the money and stuff, but I got this big chunk of change, and now I can never work union again unless I join the union. And what do I do? She said, well, you'd be an idiot not to join the union. So I go out there and I join the union, and then next thing I know, she's mad that I spent the money joining the union. It's like $3,000. For 1997, that was a lot of fucking money. And then all you do is you walk away with this little tiny bin. There's a Screen Actors Guild. It's like, I spent $3,000 and all I get is this lousy bin. Well, in many ways it was worth it. And I'm thankful to Ivan Reitman, even though, again, I was kind of bummed that my scene got cut out. I was hoping everyone told me I would be welcome at the premiere, and I get this letter from Ivan telling me, oh, I'm so sorry, but your scene was cut, and so we don't have an invite for you, and I feel real bad. And then I get this other letter from his secretary saying, he normally doesn't do that. He has never done it. In all of the years working for him, he's never written somebody back and apologized. So consider yourself lucky, and I still have that letter. And rest in peace, Ivan, and thank you for the opportunity. It really was. It was kind of life-changing at that time, and I'm grateful and thankful because I got to meet many more stars and worked on a lot more films and television shows, and for a while there, it was a life. But all things do come to an end, and I hit that point where the industry nearly collapsed after 9/11. Things were pretty bad, and I just could not. Well, work was unstable to begin with, but that just made it 100 times worse. And so I decided to go back to college and pursue a career in technology, which, as you can probably guess, didn't work out too well for me. It did for a few minutes, but well, I'll always think back to my film career. And this last week, I made the bold move because it's hard to get any work after 35, and it seems like you can't get any work until after 55. So hey, I'm 57. I decided to reactivate my card, and I'm officially legit to work again. So as soon as I get my new card and print out some headshots, I'm gonna go out canvassing a few casting directors, and hopefully, as Svetlana once told me, is a Russian friend I befriended a year ago that disappeared out in Dubai. she said, there's still a film out there for you. And, you know, it would be nice for you to have new stories. Because I've been telling these stories for a long, long time. And as I said before, I record these things in part for entertainment value, but also because as I get older, my memory's starting to slip. And it would be a damn shame if these stories went with me and never to be retold. You know, to borrow from Blade Runner, all these moments in time will be lost like tears in the rain. Well, that's why we're recording these things, and I hope you enjoyed this story. It's unfortunate that Robin took his life. There was a whole community of us who got to know him really well and considered him a friend. And it was like a death in the family, and we only wish he would have reached out to any one of us. We would have dropped what we were doing to help him, because he helped us, and he was such a good person. And the world just has never been as funny without Robin Williams. He really was a good soul, and unfortunately, like many good creative people, a rather tortured one. Well, Robin, if you're tuning in, like I said to other people, Godspeed, rest in peace, and we miss you. Again, this has been my story, my history, and again, another extension of my proof of life. This evil regime's trying to erase us. And the more content we put out, the harder it is to make us go away so easily. And I intend to be unforgettable, one form or another. Well, again, we're at near the end of summer and getting to that hot period, and so we'll be prepping to do all the winter scenes and Halloween scenes, and hopefully, as my friend said, there's still a film out there for me. I hope so. The beauty is these days I can turn down work because I don't have to do anything demeaning if I don't want to, because my wife's cool with it. But it would be helpful if I bring in some cash. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this story of the late Robin Williams, and Billy, if you're still watching out there, it was not intentional. Okay. Well, I doubt it, but you never know. It's just one of those things. Anyway, have a good night, folks. Do take care of each other, and always, always profess love, because it is the greatest power, and one day it will triumph over evil. You'll see. Take care, everyone. Love you all.